Hello, here we are at Hylton Castle, which was once the school attended by Joseph Swan. Joseph Swan, one of the biggest names in science and invention who ever came from the northeast. Joseph Swan was born in Pallion in Sunderland, and his father, like many people around the River Wear, worked in connection with activities on the weir, like shipbuilding. In fact, he was an anchor chain maker. Apparently he was reasonably well off. They could afford to send him to school, although he only did go to school for 5 years. Before going to school, there are some wonderful stories in Joseph Swan's diary, all about how he visited lots of the industries on the weir, and even at night he was allowed to go out and see what was going on. So he tells stories of seeing the glow of furnaces from steel making and for glass making. So he saw bright lights shining in the dark from all of these activities. Well, for about 2 years, from the age of 8, Joseph Swan attended a school across on the other side of the river. I think it was in the Grindon area, and he refers to it as the Miss Herries School. But after 2 years, maybe a bit less, he moved to the school which was to become Hylton Castle School. There's a beautiful story about one of the assemblies in school. Joseph Swan sitting there with his brother, and the headmaster makes a really important announcement. He says, "Boys, from tomorrow you will be able to send a letter for 1 penny all the way from Land's End to John O'Groats." And that story dates exactly when he was in the school, because that was the penny black. That was the first issue of the penny black stamp. He saw, as a small child, a prism casting the spectrum from sunlight onto the wall in the classroom. There are so many lovely little facts about light in particular, the furnaces, his knowledge of sort of candles and making light, and the spectrum that definitely seem to have influenced the work that he did related to light. He went on to invent the electric light bulb, but that was one of the later inventions. When you think about it, people think of an invention like a sort of short period of time, a fabulous idea, you put it into practice and sell it. Joseph Swan worked on the light bulb for 30 years. He kept leaving the invention because of lack of progress. You see, what he was trying to do was, he wasn't trying to invent a light bulb, he was trying to invent new materials that hadn't been produced yet. He was familiar with materials on the river, and he knew that this was a search for the correct material that could glow very brightly and produce a massive amount of light. Swan's inventions were many and varied and didn't just relate to light. He was a keen photographer, and when you think about it, he didn't just take the hobby up there and then because it was an up-and-coming thing. It was because he worked as a druggist. So a chemist would call them today, or a pharmacist. He was apprenticed to a druggist in Sunderland, and there he got free rein to use all of the chemicals. So it was all about developing prints from photographs that had been taken. Very quickly, he realized things could be improved. And it wasn't long before he took basic chemical developing salts and made an improved solution which was ready to sell. So as a very young man, he'd already produced and marketed a developing solution for photographs. And that gave him the platform to take off and do all sorts of other things.